Welcome to the deep dive. We are opening a file today that, well, it remains fiercely contested, spanning 4 decades of Philippine history and really touching some raw nerves.
Definitely. We're talking celebrity, political power, media control, and just enduring controversy.
Exactly. We're undertaking a deep dive into the life, the tragic death, and the persistent allegations surrounding the Filipino actress Pepsi Paloma.
This story is, arguably one of the most painful and revealing case studies in modern Philippine history. It kicked off in the, let's say, exploitative celebrity culture of the 1980s.
Right under the shadow of the Marcos dictatorship and martial law?
Precisely. Yet the legal and social battle over what happened to her, it's still going on today, shaping discourse in the digital age, the 2020s.
Yeah.
We've gathered sources that outline a really complex narrative. You've got allegations of sexual assault, powerful political coercion, conflicting accounts of her death, which was ruled a suicide, and importantly, these aggressive modern attempts at, well, historical erasure.
So our mission today is to go beyond just the summary. We're here to synthesize the detailed timeline of Pepsi Paloma's very short life.
Document the serious claims made against these immensely prominent figures.
And explore the counter-narratives that popped up both immediately and, decades later.
And crucially, analyze the immense power that was leveraged to suppress this history, which, ironically, is probably what ensures the story's survival today.
For anyone seeking to understand that intersection of unchecked power and accountability, especially within the Philippine media and political establishment, the details we're unpacking today are, well, they're crucial.
Okay, so to really grasp the scale of the tragedy and the power dynamics involved, we absolutely have to start at the beginning with Delia Duenas Smith.
That was her real name.
Yes. Born July 17th, 1966. And her origins were a world away from Manila's showbiz glitz. She was the eldest of 4 kids, born to a Filipina mother and an American letter carrier father, Kenneth Smith. He apparently abandoned the family pretty early on.
So she grew up poor?
In significant poverty, yeah. Likely in the Cagayan Valley. And like so many young women back then, showbiz looked like one of the only ways out, for social mobility.
That context of vulnerability is just foundational, isn't it? She was discovered incredibly young.
Yeah, around 14 or 15, something like that. This would be circa 1980.
And a talent scout brought her to a manager, Ray De La Cruz. And this is where the persona, Pepsi Paloma, was born.
Right. De La Cruz christened her Pepsi Paloma. The name itself, it sounds glamorous maybe, but it really speaks volumes about how she was immediately, well, commodified.
Turned into a product.
Exactly. And the name wasn't random. It was part of the specific, highly successful but deeply exploitative marketing trend in the 80s, the soft drink beauties.
Ah, yes. I remember hearing about this.
Paloma was grouped with other young actresses like Sarcia Manuel and Coca Nicolas. They were all pushed as bold stars.
Which meant?
Basically, the leading faces of the adult-themed cinema of that era. Locally, they called them Bomba films.
We should probably pause on that for a second. The Bomba film industry during the 80s, under martial law, this wasn't just like adult movies in the way we might think today.
No, it was often this open secret of, frankly, state-sanctioned exploitation. Martial law, under Marcos, it was a time of intense political repression, right?
Absolutely.
But at the same time, the regime kind of let this highly profitable, morally ambiguous Bomba industry just flourish.
Why? What was the thinking there?
Well, the theory is it served as a distraction, keep the masses entertained, maybe divert attention from the harsh political reality.
The sort of bread and circuses, but with exploitation cinema.
You could say that. It created the perfect historical pressure cooker for abuse. The sources confirm Pepsi Paloma's active career only spanned about 5 years.
Just 5 years?
Yeah, from roughly 1980 to 1985. She debuted in films like Brown Emanuel in 81.
Okay, so do the math.
Exactly. This means throughout her entire fame, the scandals, her death, she was between the ages of 14 and 18.
A child. Legally and developmentally, a child.
Precisely. And this context of extreme youth, coupled with that institutionalized exploitation, that's the lens we have to view everything else through.
Despite being so young, her look, the mixed race features, fair skin made her stand out quickly. She was successful, right?
Oh.
Starring in controversial but popular movies.
Oh, yeah. Things like The Victim and Virgin People.
Oh.
But her whole career trajectory, it was built on this premature sexualization. It confirms the film industry back then just operated without the safeguards needed to protect minors.
And this initial vulnerability just makes what happened in 1982 even more, well, devastating.
So that intense vulnerability, it just hits this catastrophic peak in June 1982. Pepsi Paloma, who was then around 16 years old.
Though you mentioned her exact age is debated in the sources.
Critically, yes, it varies slightly, which impacts the statutory rape aspect of the claim. Anyway, she and another actress, Guadaguarin, filed a complaint.
Alleged gang rape.
Yes, and the accused were not minor figures. These were three of the biggest, most powerful TV personalities in the Philippines: Vic Soto, Joey De Leon, and Richie DeHorsey.
The hosts of Eat Bulaga.
The very same. Immensely famous, long-running noontime show hosts, national institutions, really.
Wow. You cannot overstate the cultural chasm between the accusers and the accused here.
Absolutely not. On one side, you've got these two young women, vulnerable, already scrutinized, often judged bomba stars.
And on the other?
Three men who were like family fixtures, symbols of entertainment, and crucially, incredibly connected to political power structures.
The allegations themselves, they were shocking, right? Very detailed.
Incredibly so. Paloma claims she'd been taken to a bar, allegedly drugged until she passed out, and then driven to a room at the Sulo Hotel in Quezon City.
Okay.
She alleged that while she was unconscious, unresponsive, she was sexually assaulted. And there were also claims, mentioned in some early reports, that they took naked photos of her.
Which suggests, what, premeditation? Recording the act.
It certainly implies a level of calculation or at least documentation of the assault.
But what's really fascinating, especially given this was peak martial law, is that Paloma actually tried to pursue justice. She didn't just let it go.
No, she didn't. She sought official prosecution. And her manager, Ray de la Cruz, somehow managed to get the attention of the state's, political heavyweight, the defense secretary at the time, Juan Ponce Enrile.
Enrile himself got involved. That signals this was immediately high stakes.
Absolutely. Enrile referred Paloma to a very distinguished, high-profile lawyer, Atita Rene Cayetano.
Who, for our listeners, is the father of future Senators Pia and Alan Peter Cayetano.
The very same. Cayetano immediately offered his legal services to Paloma pro bono, free of charge. That showed the case was being taken seriously, at least initially, at the highest legal levels.
And the accused, Soto, De Leon, DeHorsey, they must have been terrified. This wasn't just like a civil suit for damages.
Not at all. We have to stress the legal context of rape back then, if they had been convicted.
They faced the death penalty?
Yes. Execution by electric chair. That was the law in the Philippines at the time for such crimes. And this wasn't just theoretical. Sources repeatedly bring up the precedent of the Maggie de la Riva rape case from 1967.
What happened there?
In that case, 3 of the 4 men convicted were actually executed by electric chair in 1972. It was even broadcast live on TV.
Seriously? Live?
Yes. So that case proved that even celebrity or power didn't always guarantee immunity from the ultimate penalty, even under Marcos.
Okay, so that knowledge that these incredibly powerful TV stars were facing a genuine existential threat that must have been the engine driving what happened next.
Precisely. The pressure to make this case simply disappear must have been absolutely overwhelming.
So we have a situation that blew up really fast, from a crime report to a national political and judicial crisis. A young, exploited minor versus some of the most visible men in the country, with death sentences potentially on the line.
And that pressure wasn't just ambient, it was leveraged immediately by the powerful connections of the accused.
Who stepped in?
The central figure in this intervention seems to have been Vic Soto's older brother, Tito Soto.
Already a big name then. Later Senator Tito Soto, Senate President.
The very same, already an influential public figure. His involvement was clearly aimed at making sure his brother did not face the same fate as Maggie de la Riva's attackers.
Okay, and this is where the story moves beyond celebrity scandal and into something much darker, right? Yeah. A chilling example of state power potentially being used against a citizen.
Exactly. While Paloma's lawyer, Akiti Cayetano, was reportedly finalizing the formal complaint for prosecution, Pepsi Paloma disappeared.
She just vanished.
She was reported missing. The key witness in a capital case was suddenly gone.
And who was tasked with finding her? Regular police.
Not exactly. The individuals assigned were, shall we say, notorious figures within the Marcos security apparatus. Colonel Rolando Abadia and Captain Panfilo Lacson.
Abadia, head of MISG Lacson, future senator and police chief.
Yes. Abadia was the former head of the Metrocom Intelligence and Security Group, later implicated in significant human rights abuses during martial law. Lacson was his protege. These were men who wielded immense, often terrifying state power.
Okay, so they find her. What did they allegedly uncover? This is the core of the coercion story, isn't it?
It is. Reports state that Paloma was found being held captive by a figure named Bienvenido Mendoza, better known as Ben Ulo.
And who was Ben Ulo?
Here's the crucial connection. He was reportedly the main enforcer for the powerful Castello clan.
The Castellos being...
The maternal side of the Soto family, Vic and Tito Soto's mother's family.
Wow. So the family enforcer was allegedly holding the witness.
And according to the records, Ben Ulo didn't even try to hide the connection. Sources say he confessed to Colonel Abadia that he was an accomplice of the Castellos.
The implications are staggering. It strongly suggests the abduction of the key witness was carried out by someone directly linked to the family of the accused.
Using intimidation tactics to stop a capital case dead in its tracks.
That sounds like the definition of impunity.
Yeah.
Using political muscle, maybe even criminal connections, to remove a witness.
And the subsequent failure of the system just hammers that point home. Despite this confession, despite being identified as the person holding Paloma captive, Ben Ulo Mendoza was never charged.
Never charged. For abduction.
Never charged with any crime related to the abduction. The state apparatus, the very people who found the witness, apparently chose not to prosecute her abductor.
That systemic failure, it sets the stage for what comes next, doesn't it? The formal dropping of the case?
It does. Paloma later alleged that shortly after this rescue, Tito Soto visited her.
While she was presumably still vulnerable, maybe traumatized.
One would assume so. And she claimed that during this visit, he coerced her into signing a document, an affidavit of desistance.
Which is basically a legal paper saying the victim wants to drop the charge.
Exactly. It's a formal withdrawal of cooperation in a criminal case in the Philippines.
That's terrifying. Did any reports at the time detail how this coercion allegedly happened? Or was it just her word against his?
The focus back then was mostly on the legal outcome. But later, journalist Rena Jimenez David wrote about the alleged specifics in her column.
What did she report?
She described this incredibly chilling scene where Tito Soto allegedly placed a pistol on the table in front of Paloma while they talked.
A gun on the table?
Yes. Whether it was pointed or just sitting there, the message delivered to a, 16-year-old girl who'd just been abducted and rescued by state security forces, it's undeniable. Pure intimidation.
That level of alleged intimidation, plus the systemic failures we've talked about, the non-prosecution of the alleged abductor, it raises huge legal questions. People must have debated this forever.
They have. How could that affidavit of desistance possibly be considered valid?
Right. She was a minor. Whether she was 14, as one source suggests about the signing, or 16, she was underage.
And she signed this critical legal document apparently without her lawyer present, without Addadaddy. Cayetano, the person assigned to protect her interests.
Legally, that sounds like it should have been thrown out immediately. Signed under duress, by a minor, without counsel.
In a normal system, maybe. But this was 1982. Martial law. Highly politicized environment. The courts were effectively powerless against that kind of celebrity and political connection.
So the outcome was?
Swift. The affidavit of desistance was accepted. No criminal charges were ever filed against Vic Soto, Joey DeLeon, or Richie DeHorsey. The case vanished from the legal system.
But there was some kind of public acknowledgement, wasn't there? An apology.
There was a carefully worded public apology. The three comedians issued it, and it was published in the People's Journal on October 13th, 1982.
What did it actually say? The exact wording is important here, I imagine.
Absolutely critical. They wrote, and I'm quoting loosely here from the reports, "We hope that you will not allow the error we have committed against you to stand as a stumbling block. We therefore ask you to find it in your heart to pardon us for the wrong which we have done against you."
Error. Wrong, not crime.
Precisely. A very careful, very deliberate linguistic choice. It allowed them to offer a public resolution, satisfy some demand for accountability, maybe quell the scandal.
While simultaneously using that legally binding, if allegedly coerced, affidavit of desistance as an absolute shield against criminal prosecution.
Exactly. Apologize for the act, maybe, but never admit guilt to a capital offense. It was, frankly, a sophisticated and powerful display of legal and political maneuvering.
So the case was officially closed. But for Pepsi Paloma, the repercussions were just tragic and permanent.
Tragically so. Just 3 years after signing that affidavit, on May 31st, 1985, she was found dead.
In her apartment.
How old was she?
Only 18 years old. Her life ended just as she was becoming an adult.
And the official ruling was?
Suicide by hanging. That was the conclusion from PFC Willie Borgoni of the Quezon City Police.
And the reason given?
They cited monetary problems and anxiety. They base this mainly on a personal diary found at the scene, which supposedly contained notes about depression or financial worries.
Okay, but that narrative didn't sit right with everyone, did it? Not at all. It was immediately, forcefully, and very publicly contradicted by the person who probably knew her professional life best. Her manager at the time, Babette Corcuera.
What did Corcuera say?
She was adamant that the official reason, monetary problems, was just completely nonsensical, utterly false in her view. She testified that Paloma was actually financially stable, even thriving.
Can we put some numbers on that? What was she earning?
Corcuera stated Paloma was earning P2,500 per performance. Now, you have to remember, in 1985 pesos, that was a huge amount of money.
Indicative of a successful in-demand star.
Absolutely. Corcuera confirmed Paloma was fully booked for dancing gigs, and far from being anxious about work, she had 3 promising film offers lined up.
So professionally, things looked good. What about personally? Did Corcuera think she seemed suicidal?
According to Corcuera, her personal life didn't align with that picture either. Paloma had recently adopted a baby boy, just 4 months old. Yeah, and she was reportedly very dedicated to him. Plus, she was apparently really excited about the future. She was looking forward to turning 18 the next year.
The big debut party.
Exactly. She'd apparently made her manager promise to host a grand debut party for her at a fancy hotel. So Corcuera's conclusion, as the sources record it, was simple. It just did not add up.
Okay, so if the official explanation seems shaky, we have to look at the investigation itself. And this is where things get really concerning, based on the sources.
Yeah, the reports point to, well, systemic failure at best, maybe even an active cover-up. What stands out is the sheer inadequacy of the police work.
Like what specifically?
Well, the lack of standard forensic investigation is alarming. Sources repeatedly mention the Quezon City Police failed to record checking for fingerprints.
Fingerprints where?
Around the closet, the area where she was allegedly found hanged. Basic crime scene processing, you'd think?
And there was something about a stool.
Right. There was no report confirming if there was a stool or a box or anything inside the closet, the very thing she would have presumably needed to stand on to hang herself from the closet bar.
Okay, that's a major omission.
Yeah.
What about the diary? The supposed proof of depression.
That's maybe the most glaring issue. It was cited as the key evidence for suicide due to distress, but it was never professionally verified.
Meaning?
There's no record of any attempt to check if the handwriting in that diary actually was Pepsi Paloma's.
They just took it at face value.
It appears so. It was simply accepted as evidence supporting the suicide ruling. This failure to verify the crucial piece of physical evidence suggests either alarming incompetence or perhaps intentional negligence, turning a blind eye.
These kinds of omissions, they obviously fueled suspicion right away, didn't they? Suspicions of foul play.
Immediately. And those suspicions have persisted for decades. The anecdotes from her wake are particularly haunting.
All kinds of anecdotes.
Well, there's one account mentioned in the sources from someone who attended the wake as a young boy. He recalled seeing visible marks around her neck.
Marks suggesting.
He felt they looked more like strangulation marks. Marks, he claimed, that couldn't have been caused by the soft cotton sash that was officially reported as the instrument used in the hanging.
Just anecdotal, but chilling nonetheless.
And the suggestion of murder wasn't just from anonymous attendees. There was apparently a self-confessed hitman, Kit Mateo.
A hitman?
Yeah. He reportedly intimated in an interview with ABS-CBN that it was murder. But that interview segment never aired.
Again, suggesting maybe pressure or censorship around the details of her death.
It certainly adds to that narrative. And then, if the tragedy wasn't deep enough already, consider the fate of the one person who publicly, loudly challenged the suicide ruling from the start. Her first manager, Ray De La Cruz.
The one who discovered her named her.
Yes, and the one who helped her bring the original rape complaint. He openly alleged a cover-up after her death.
What happened to him?
He was murdered. Gunned down in 1988, just 3 years after Paloma died.
And the case.
Unsolved. Which, of course, only cemented the public suspicion that anyone who spoke out too loudly about this case faced dangerous consequences. It became part of the narrative of intentional silencing.
So after Paloma's death and then her manager's murder, the narrative was effectively, well, suppressed, wasn't it?
For a long time, yes. The accused, Vic Soto, Joey De Leon, Richie Dorsey, They went on to have incredibly long, successful careers.
Vic Soto became this huge box office king. Tito Soto built this extraordinary political career, rising all the way to Senate president.
Right, and for decades, Pepsi Paloma's story just sort of vanished from the mainstream official media narrative. It felt like a classic case of history being written by the powerful survivals.
But history, especially unresolved trauma like this, it has a way of sticking around, doesn't it? Surviving underground.
It really does. And in the Philippines, that survival mechanism took a very specific form. This enduring urban legend connecting her story to, of all things, the massive 90s rock band, the Eraserheads.
Ah, the Spolarium connection. That's huge in Filipino pop culture lore.
Absolutely foundational for a certain generation. The specific lyrics that fueled this whole theory mention the names Enteng at Joey.
And something being erased.
Exactly. The line goes something like, "Anong sinulat ni Enteng at Joey dyan? Sa gintong salamin di ko na mabasa pakat merong nagbura," which translates roughly to, "What did Enteng and Joey write there on the golden mirror? I can't read it anymore because someone erased it."
And fans immediately latched onto that. Enteng being Vic Soto's famous nickname, Joey, for Joey De Leon.
And the erasure being the alleged erasure of their criminal past. The rape case records the memory of it all.
Now, it's crucial to point out the band denies this, right?
Explicitly and repeatedly. The sources confirm this. Ili Buendia, the lead singer, has said the song is just about getting drunk, maybe a bad trip.
And Enteng and Joey?
He said they referred to the band's roadies at the time, Vincent Enteng, Villasanta, and Joey Navarra.
Okay, so the band denies it. But in a way, their actual intent almost matters less than how the legend took hold culturally.
Precisely. The fact that an entire generation, especially students, netizens, used this somewhat obscure lyric as a kind of code, a proxy for discussing the injustice they felt Paloma suffered.
It shows how deeply the feeling resonated, that her story was suppressed but never truly forgotten. It became this cultural container for that perceived failure of justice.
And the attempt to suppress the story didn't end back in the 80s or 90s. It flared up again very publicly in 2018, the censorship incident.
It started with an article.
Yes, by a journalist and lawyer named Rudel Rodas. He published a detailed account titled The Rape of Pepsi Paloma in the online edition of the Philippine Daily Inquirer back in 2014.
And it got attention?
It went viral. It brought the whole story, the allegations, back into the spotlight for a new, digital-savvy audience.
Okay, so fast forward to 2018.
June 2018, Senator Tito Soto, now a very powerful political figure, formally requested the Inquirer to remove those articles.
On what grounds?
He cited damage to his reputation. And the Inquirer, a major national newspaper, complied. They took the articles down.
Which, of course, had the opposite effect.
Absolutely textbook Streisand effect. The moment the attempt was made to erase the history, boom, massive explosion of interest.
People started sharing it even more.
Exactly. Netizens immediately mirrored the articles, shared screenshots, posted links everywhere. The case was discussed far more widely after the takedown attempt than before it. The censorship attempt basically validated everyone's fears that the history was being intentionally hidden.
Did any media groups push back?
Yes, the pressure was intense. The National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, the NUJP, issued a strong public statement about the removal.
Framing it how?
As a serious issue of press freedom and historical accountability. Removing documented historical accounts, even controversial ones, at the request of a powerful politician that raised major red flags for them. It added significant weight to the public outcry.
So that brings us pretty much up to date to the current battleground, which seems to be modern media and film.
Right. Enter director Daryl Yap. He's known for provocative, often controversial films. He announced a project, initially titled The Rapists of Pepsi Paloma.
A very provocative title.
Extremely. The film was later retitled Pepsi Paloma for its domestic release in the Philippines, but, and this is key, it reportedly retained the original, more aggressive title for international distribution.
What was Yap's justification for making the film?
He defended it, calling it a shocking, truthful revelation. He strongly denied getting any political funding or that it was an anti-Soto project.
Claiming one instead.
He framed it as a responsibility to tell the true story of Delia Smith, Pepsi Paloma, who is also from Olongapo, his hometown, a fellow Olongapeño.
But the timing was interesting, wasn't it?
Undeniably fraught. It coincided with high-stakes election campaigns involving the Soto political family, Tito Soto himself, and his son, Vico Soto, who was running for mayor.
So how did the Sotos react to this film project?
Vic Soto specifically responded with significant legal force. He filed a massive P35 million cyber libel suit against Yap.
35 million pesos.
Wow. And he also sought a court order to take down the film's trailer.
Why the trailer specifically?
Because the trailer apparently hit the core issue head-on. It reportedly featured the actress playing Paloma asking the question directly, "Nirape ka ba ni Vic Soto? Were you raped by Vic Soto?"
Putting the allegation right back into the national conversation, front and center.
Exactly. This legal clash, happening as recently as reports from January 2025, has dragged the decades-old allegations squarely back into the headlines.
Okay, and there's one more recent development, right? A counter-narrative from some of the other women involved back then.
Yes, perhaps the most complex layer recently added. Interviews emerged in 2024, maybe early 2025, featuring the other surviving soft drink beauties, specifically Coca Nicholas and Sarcy Emanuel.
And what did they say after all these years of silence?
They provided a denial. They denied the rape allegations against Soto, De Leon, and Dorsey ever happened.
Their claim was
That the entire scandal, the allegations, the NRAL referral, the lawyer, the media frenzy was all just a publicity stunt, an elaborate gimmick cooked up entirely by their manager, Ray Dela Cruz.
the same manager who was later murdered.
The very same. They attributed Paloma's death solely to personal depression and family problems, completely denying any sexual assault occurred.
Given the context, their manager being murdered after speaking out, the immense power involved, the documented coercion claims, how much weight can you really put on a denial issued decades later? Especially by women who were also part of that same exploitative system back then.
That's the critical question, isn't it? Their denial certainly serves the narrative of those who want the case closed for good.
But it seems to ignore a lot of the documented evidence.
It arguably ignores the police reports, the involvement of state security figures like Abadila and Lacson in the rescue, the affidavit of desistance signed by a minor under alleged duress, even the specific wording of the public apology issued by the accused.
So the emergence of these counter-denials now, it just keeps the controversy alive.
It absolutely ensures the narrative remains furiously contested. It prevents any kind of stable historical resolution, any easy closure. The wound, as you said, refuses to heal. #tag outro.
So this deep dive really shows us, doesn't it, how the story of Pepsi Paloma isn't just one single historical fact.
Yeah.
It's more like a series of conflicting, powerful realities layered right on top of each other.
Yeah, we've documented these, I think, 3 inescapable dimensions of the whole saga. First, the profound exploitation of Delia Duenas-Smith, a minor actress, in a truly morally bankrupt film industry back then.
Second, the catastrophic failure of the justice system, the state system, apparently bent by incredible political and celebrity power.
And third, this relentless, ongoing modern battle, fought mostly online now, in the digital sphere, against historical erasure, even as these new claims and counterclaims keep popping up decades later.
We're left with these stark, unresolved conflicts, the official suicide ruling versus the manager's detailed murder theory and the questions around the investigation.
The claim of horrific coercion and abduction versus this recent publicity gimmick defense from the other women.
These factors just ensure that the call for justice for Pepsi Paloma, it remains really deep, really resonant, but ultimately unresolved in the public mind and cultural memory.
And the sources really reveal this paradox. While her story was aggressively suppressed, officially closed decades ago, the very power, the very force used in those attempts to erase the history.
That's what keeps it alive.
That's exactly what keeps the call for justice alive and, frankly, vibrant in the modern era. The attempts to silence it are what amplify it.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? What does it say about a culture, or maybe any political system, when the only way a victim's story seems to survive its attempted silencing is by becoming the subject of just endless controversy, endless public disagreement, these endless cycles of claim and counterclaim?
That's the powerful, lingering question we leave you with today.